Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. This week at the Funky Junky Inspiration Avenue blog, we are creating to the theme of Let's Be Neutral. So today I'm going to be creating two cards, one with a neutral backdrop and one with a neutral focal point. Today we're going to be focusing on distress inks, oxides, and a touch of distress paint. Within the theme of neutrals, I am also including metallic items. So, if you'd like to see exactly which supplies I'm going to be using, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Before we dive into today's projects, let's take a quick look over here and see what colors we have in the neutral family. Up here I have a collection of distress reinkers and some of the distress oxide reinkers. As you can see, we've got a few corners filled with nice neutral colors, browns, black, gray, and white. And same up here. So we've got choices. Now, taking a look down here, this is the primary distress palette. I do have all of the distress inks. I'm definitely pulling in Lost Shadow for this project, but looking over here, I'm going to try to pull some of the colors that I don't use too often. That would include Antique Linen, maybe not Picket Fence, let's see here. Brushed Corduroy, Tea Dye, Frayed Burlap. Of course, we need to add some Vintage Photo. And one more. Let's also add some old paper. Looking over here on our oxide side, I think we're going to be pulling in Ground Espresso and Walnut Stain. Oh, let's see, where's Walnut Stain hiding? That must be this one. Yep, Walnut Stain. And we also have the Distress Archival inks. These are also in neutral colors. We have Hickory Smoke, Ground Espresso, Vintage Photo, and of course, Black Soot. All right, let's take our inks back to the main table. Today, we are talking about neutrals, and we're going to be playing with neutrals in two different ways today. The first way, we're going to be creating a neutral background, and I pulled out a bunch of distress inks, as you saw earlier, from the massive pile of choices. So, we're going to be looking at old paper, antique linen, tea dye, vintage photo, brushed corduroy, lost shadow, frayed burlap for distress inks. Then we also have, for oxides, walnut stain, ground espresso, and lost shadow. So for the two techniques that we're going to be looking at today, we're going to be playing with neutral colors in a background and neutral colors as a focus point. First, let's go ahead and create our neutral background with distress inks. We're going to be doing a traditional distress ink squish technique, and we're going to build up some inky layers for our card base. So first things first, I'm going to move the white part of the media mat into screen, and we're going to put down some inks. So these are colors that I definitely don't use as much as some of the more brighter colors of distress. I normally use these as shadow colors and to add a bit of grunge to different pieces of ephemera. But today we're going to be playing with these as our main focal point and in the background. For our background, I'm going to be using some distress watercolor cardstock, and that is going to be the basis of our foundation for that first piece. Okay, looking at this, I'm probably not going to use all of the colors, but we'll make a good start with these 6. And I do have an oxide in here, which will add some contrast. So we have our colors down. Now let's give this a quick spritz, and we're going to start dipping and drying. All right, let's try this. Oh, that's my drip drop one, and there we go. Okay, so we're going to take that piece of watercolor cardstock, and I'm going to be going in with the rough bumpy side for the background, since it's in the background. So we'll just put that down. I'm going to twist that kind of sideways, make our first impression, and see what we get. Okay, interesting. And I think I'll move this around a little bit with some water. Just add a few drips on here, and we'll just tilt the cardstock and let the ink run and do its thing. Okay, interesting. So this is a pretty good foundation. We are now going to repeat the process of dripping and drying to build up some inky layers. So let's go ahead and put this section on fast forward as we build our background. Now that we have a fairly good foundation for our background, I'm going to go in with a couple more inks and fill in a couple of the empty spots. We're going to be filling in the blanks with some tea dye and some vintage photo. I'm going to start with tea dye because it is the lighter of the two colors. Just taking a mini blending tool and a dome foam, and we're just going to be filling in the blanks just in a couple of areas. Just adding a light touch, nothing too heavy, just to add to that neutral background. Okay. Pretty good. Now I'm going to go in with a bit of vintage photo, and we're just going to go around the edges of the background. I'm just going to darken up the edges. And after I am done darkening the edges, we're going to go in and add a few more droplets of water to keep the texture that we had underneath those layers of ink. Okay. Good. I am happy with this background. So I'm actually going to let this one dry as is. I'm not going to use the heat tool on it, and we're going to move on to our next background. Our next background is going to be a colorful one because our second technique is going to be neutrals as the focal point. For the colors of Distress Spray Stain that we're using for our colorful background, we're going to be using Mermaid Lagoon, Picked Raspberry, and Squeezed Lemonade, a trio of bright colors for our flashy background. Okay, let's go ahead and put this next part on fast forward as we let the Distress Spray work its inky magic. And here is our completed bright background. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to be adding a bit of texture to our pieces. We have our neutral background and we've got our bright background. And to keep these cards kind of in a same genre of sorts, we are going to be using an embossing folder on both of these backgrounds. This is the dotted folder, and this is one of the layered folders. It has tiers. If you look closely on this, there are different levels on this embossing folder. It's not 3D, but you've got like level 1, level 2, and level 3. So this will give us some very interesting texture. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run these through on the Vagabond, and then we'll be back to embellish our textures. All right, let's take a look at the results with the embossing folder. So this is the colorful background, and we've now got this really fun dotted texture all over here. And here is our neutral background with the dotted texture. So we want to make that texture pop. And to do that, we're going to be doing another layer of neutrals over the top of this. Well, you might think more brown, that's just going to blend with the background. But metallics are also considered neutrals. So we're going to be adding a metallic splash to each of these backgrounds. On our neutral background, we're going to be adding a dash of foundry wax in the color of statue. On our rainbow background, we're going to be adding the neutral tarnished brass with some distressed paint. So each of these has a different method of application. Let's go ahead and start with this one. So for the rainbow color background, we're going to be pulling out one of the mini Tim Holtz Ranger brayers. I absolutely love these. They're just the right size and perfect for skimming over the top of a background to add a little bit of extra flair. So off to the side, we're going to be putting down a little bit of tarnished brass, and then I'll be scooping it up with a brayer. This is the brayer that we're using today. This is a great size and will skim perfectly over our card. So just getting the paint onto the brayer, nice and loose, and we're just going to lightly roll over the top. And as you can see, instant color, instant pizzazz. Very, very cool. Okay, now we'll just give this mat a very quick cleanup, and we will be on to our next metallic. So the next metallic is Distressed Foundry Wax Statue. I'm going to give that bottle a very good shake. Make sure we can hear the mixing ball rattling around in there. And then we're going to put a bit of that down directly onto the media mat. I'm trying to clean as I go. Well, while I'm here, I'm also just going to show you very quickly. With the brayer, these are super easy to clean. You just take the side, pull, the roller pops right off. Take a inky cloth or a paper towel, take a spritzer, and just wipe this off. Easy cleaning. I love these things that just have super quick ways of cleaning up. It makes the crafting process so much easier, and you know, like Tim says, if you clean as you go, then your studio space has a better chance of, well, staying clean. All right, so now that that's clean, we just take that and pop it into this side. Take this, pull that out, and pops into that side. And the brayer is all good to go for the next time we want to use it. All right, back to the foundry wax. Taking some of this, and we're just dropping that right onto the media mat. That should be good right there. I don't need too much. Now I'm going to take a small brush, maybe a medium brush. Let's see. This one should be okay. I'm just going to dab that, and I'm just going to dry brush this over the top. I'm just doing this quick sweepy motion to catch those raised bumps. But we won't see the true magic of the foundry wax until we apply some heat. I need a little bit more at the base. Okay, just dabbing that up and flicking it on. Okay, almost good. All right, I am happy with that. Now we're going to heat this up and review the metallic that is hidden. Okay, let's take a closer look at our two backgrounds. So here we have our neutral background with our foundry wax over the top. That really makes the texture pop, and I like how it's just a little bit streaky since we dry brushed this on with a large paintbrush. That looks really cool. Okay, and in comparison, here is our vibrant background, and here we have some of the distressed paint tarnished brass over the top, which in its own way gives a little bit more pop to the backgrounds. So we've got two backgrounds with the same embossing folder, but two very different looks. We have our 100% neutral colors and added metallic, and then we have our bright background with neutral metallic. So now let's go ahead and work on the focal points. We're going to start with our bright background first and our neutral focal point. So what I have done is I die cut an oval, and this is a fairly neutral paper, And then we're going to be adding a couple of pieces to it. We've got a bit of flower fields from one of the Sizzix Holtz die cuts. I believe this was released last year. And we die cut that on some of the winter wood grain paper. Now, if you recall, Tim did a really fun video where he showed how to create die cuts using the wood grain paper, and it gives really interesting contrast to works. And then I have a neutral frame also cut out in the shape of an oval. We're going to layer these pieces together to get our focal point. So to do that, I'm going to be grabbing some collage medium. I'm going to add that to the base of our die. I'll definitely have to do some trimming with the scissors, but not a big deal. That's pretty easy to do. Just adding that on. And I'm going to stick that onto here. And we'll just hold that a moment or two just to give the collage medium a chance to stick. Now, I love the flowers over the top of this. That looks really cool, and the wood grain gives a nice touch of neutrality. Next, we're going to take our frame and we're going to layer that over the top as well. I want the frame to be behind and in front of those floral pieces, kind of at the same time. They're just going to overlap. All right. I really like the look of this. So we're going to glue this all together, and then we will add it to the background. So I'm just running a thin line of collage medium around the oval, and we're just going to take that and line it up here. I will glue the rest of this down once we're placing it onto the card, but right now I'm just working on that line up. Okay, I'm just gonna have to give that a little wiggle and keep moving it until we have everything in place. Okay, I think it's gonna be about here. I can add a little bit of collage medium to keep that flower piece down. Okay. Yep. I really like this. This is going to be a really neat focal piece. And to keep that together, I'm just going to add a teeny tiny piece of washi tape on the back, just so our pieces aren't sliding around too much. Just flip that over, make sure that everything's aligned. There. That'll help hold things in place until I can glue it all down properly. Okay, and here. Good. All right, now let's trim off those little extra pieces. I'm just taking the tonic snips and we're going to cut around that oval frame. Get rid of those little extra bits. Okay. Whoop, there. And there is our main focal point. So I'm just going to glue this down, and I'm thinking that I do want some sort of border on here. No, maybe not a border. Ooh, we can add another piece of neutrality with some of the velvet trim. There's an entire neutrals pack right here. So we can use that as an added piece. And I think that cream color is going to be just perfect. Okay, we'll just take a piece of that, measuring that out roughly. All right. There, no need for a border. We've got trims. Okay, so let's see. This is going to be going here. I want to put the trim there. We'll put the trim down first. To attach the trim, I am using the ATG gun, and I'm just going to roll that along the back of the trim in order to get a adhesive. I could use collage medium, but I find the ATG is slightly cleaner and it allows me to tuck the trim behind the back of the card. Okay, so we've got that. We're just going to place that right here. That looks pretty good. And we'll tuck those little pieces of trim around the back side. Now we're going to add some glue to the back of this and place that focal point down onto the card. So just adding that collage medium on here. All right, that seems pretty good. And we'll just place that down. Okay, there. That's all nice and centered. And the last thing that we're going to do will be to add a sentiment to this card. For the sentiment, I'm going to be pulling in some of the Tim Holtz Ideology label stickers. And for our sentiment, I have chosen Shine Brightly. And we'll just place that right here on the velvet trim. All right, and that completes card 1 for Let's Be Neutral. Moving on to card number 2. So for our colorful focal point, we're going to be using this die cut. This is from Feathered Friends, and that will make a nice colorful contrast to our otherwise kind of dull background. All right, just giving the bird a little eye. That's good. And we're going to add a little bit more neutrality along with a pop of color. And we're going to be pulling in some elements from the new Tim Holtz Ideology release. We've got these fantastic stitched frames. These are going to be a perfect neutral addition to our card. So that's probably going to go somewhere on here like that. Now for the pops of color. I'm using an old set of Ideology Ephemera Botanical. We've got some really pretty flowers here that can easily be slipped into that stitched frame. And then we have this year's collage strips. I've altered this collage strip so that I have a little bit of yellow fading into a gray neutral. I'm just going to stack these elements together to create our card. So to do that, I'm going to be using a combination of collage medium and some foam back squares. Let's start with the collage medium. So we're going to be adding this piece right behind here, and I'm just going to glue that to the frame. So a little bit of collage medium just going along the side, and we'll take that and stick it down. We'll make sure that the flowers are showing really well. Okay, I like that quite a bit right there. And now I'm going to add some foam squares as well. On the back, I'm going to take the foam squares since I would like to add just a little bit of dimension to the card since the other one was completely flat. I'll take that, go there, another one here. Let's see, like one in the middle, one there, and I think I only need one more. And that should be good. Put that last one over here in the corner. Oh, but this is also going to be popped up, so that probably needs a square too. Okay, good. And we'll just take off the backings and we'll stick this right onto our card front. I love the new Ideology elements. There are so many things to choose from, and they all fit together so nicely. It's really easy to take a few packs of a few ephemera pieces and mix and match together to get all the ingredients that you need for a card. Okay, so that can go right here. Now we're going to add in the flower, and we'll just add bits of collage medium just around the edges, and that should be good. Tuck that little leaf right down in there. Just angle that. Okay. I am happy with this. That is good. All right. So we have our background. We've got some layers integrated. And now we just need to add our bird. And for the bird, you know, I want that to pop up just a little bit as well. So again, we'll go in with a few foam squares and add that to the bird, then add the bird to the card. All right, so this is our neutral backdrop with colorful focal point. Oh, I can stay put right there. All right, and the last thing that we need is our sentiment. I've decided to go with a neutral sentiment from the Tim Holtz Ideology Metallic sticker book. And our quote says, "Never stop exploring." And we'll just place that right here. And yet another neutral color set to add to our card. And one last thing before this card is complete. I wanted to add another splash of metallic, and we're going to be using some of the Tim Holtz Ideology droplets. These are from the 2022 Christmas release. So we're going to take those and stick those into the corner of the stitched frame. Okay, and there is our last droplet. So this is our completed card. Let's go ahead and bring our other card back in. And here are our two cards that were created to the theme of Let's Be Neutral. These were so much fun to make, and today we used two different methods of showcasing neutrals. For the first method, we created a background using only neutral colors with a pop of color for the main focal point. Then, for our other card, we went with a bright and colorful background and added a neutral focal point over the top. Two different ways to make contrasting colors pop. And on top of that, we also introduced metallics into each of the cards. Metallics are also a form of neutral color, so they make a perfect pairing whether you're working with bold and bright colors or neutral backgrounds. In this case, we used Distress Foundry Wax, Statue, Distress Paint, Tarnished Brass. These gave us two entirely different looks for our cards. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner. I hope that you've enjoyed this short video tutorial talking about the use of neutrals in card making. If you would like written details, head on over to the blog for a full written description. Link will be down in the description box. So, until next time, happy crafting!